Millbrook, Ohio isn't the kind of town you find on a map unless you're looking for it. Population 11,000 and shrinking. A steel town that used to be something, clinging to what's left of itself along a bend in the Ohio River. There's a main street with a diner that still serves coffee in real mugs, a First National Bank branch with brick the color of rust, and a little league field where the chalk lines get redrawn every Saturday morning by the same tired volunteers. This is where Thomas Whitaker grew up. This is where he stayed. Tom is 43. He wears his hair the way he wore it in his senior yearbook photo, short, parted, respectable. He played tight end for the Millbrook Panthers in 1999, did 2 years in the Marine Corps Reserve right out of high school before a knee injury sent him home, and has worked at First National ever since, rising slow and steady until they made him branch manager. He ushers at St. Anne's on the second Sunday of every month. He coaches 10-year-olds in the spring and finds, every single season, that the thing he loves most in the world is watching a kid who's never hit a ball in his life finally connect with one. He is not, by any stretch, a dangerous man. His wife Emily teaches 3rd grade at Millbrook Elementary, the same building she went to as a girl. She is the kind of teacher who remembers every student's birthday, who keeps a drawer of Granny Smith apples for the kids who come to school hungry. She met Tom at a church potluck when they were both 22, and 20 years later she still finds a reason to laugh most days at his terrible jokes. They have 2 kids. Jake is 16, quiet, watchful, more comfortable behind a camera than in front of one. The kind of teenager who says 10 words at dinner and means every one of them. Lily is 12, sharp as a tack, obsessed with horses she'll never own and unmistakably, unapologetically her father's girl. This is the life Tom built, a small life, a good one. It's the fall of 2004. 3 years since the towers fell, and something in the country has changed in ways that haven't finished changing yet. There's a word people use now, security, that gets attached to things it never used to touch. A joint task force has set up shop in the county, sheriff's deputies working alongside federal agents, chasing what they call domestic extremism and the drug pipelines that run up the river from the cities. Checkpoints on Route 9 some nights. Names on watch lists nobody can see. A feeling, unspoken but present at every barstool and church pew, that the old rules about who could be arrested and why had gotten a little softer at the edges. Nobody in Millbrook thinks much of it, not at first, not until it's Mark. Marcus Rivera, Mark, to everyone who's known him since they were 9 years old racing bikes down Chestnut Street, runs the auto shop on the edge of town. Gulf War Vet 2 Tour, came home with a bad shoulder and a good heart. He's Tom's best friend in the way only childhood friends can be. They don't talk every week, but if Tom's truck breaks down at midnight, Mark's the one who answers. Mark gets picked up on a Tuesday night in a sweep. The task force runs through the trailer park off Route 9, where they say a drug ring has been moving product up from Cincinnati. Mark's not part of it, everybody knows that, the way everybody knows things in a town this size. But his cousin's name came up on a list, and Mark made the mistake of being at his cousin's place when the cars rolled in. He doesn't come home that night. He doesn't come home the next night either. His mother, Rosa, goes to the sheriff's station every single morning for a week, and every morning they tell her something different. Processing, transferred, we'll call you. Nobody calls her. Tom finds her outside the county morgue on a gray Thursday afternoon, still in her church clothes, asking a clerk in a voice that's gone hoarse from asking the same question too many times, whether there might be an unclaimed young man matching her son's description. Tom starts small. He tells himself he's only trying to help Rosa, pulling public records, the way anyone with a little patience and a library card could. Missing persons reports. County morgue intake logs, which are public record in Ohio if you know to ask for them and are willing to wait in line. Death certificates, cross-referenced against names he half remembers from around town. The first night, it's just curiosity. He wants to find one name, Mark's name, and account for it. He doesn't find Mark's name, he finds 6 others. 6 young men, all from Millbrook or the town strung along the river near it, all listed as deceased, cause unknown, or suicide in custody over the last 14 months. 2 of them cremated within 72 hours by a private contractor the county uses to save money on burials nobody claims. A business called River Valley Cremation Services, which, Tom notices with a small cold feeling in his stomach, has a standing contract with the sheriff's department itself. He finds Frank Delaney the way you find most things in a small town. Somebody mentions a name, and that name leads to a porch, and the porch leads to a conversation neither man expected to have. Frank is 63, a retired sheriff's deputy who put in 22 years before he quietly requested reassignment to records, and then 2 years short of his pension, retired instead. He has the look of a man who sleeps badly. You're asking questions that are gonna get you hurt, Tom, Frank says, not unkindly turning a beer bottle in slow circles on the porch rail. I mean that as a friend of your father's, not as a threat. I'm not asking anybody to do anything, Tom says. I just want to know what happened to Mark. Frank is quiet a long moment. When he speaks again, his voice has dropped to something just above a whisper, like the words themselves are dangerous. There's a room in the basement of the county building. Interviews happen there that don't get logged the normal way. Coulter calls it enhanced processing. I called it something else in my head every night for 2 years. That's why I put in for records. Emily wakes at 2 in the morning to find the bed empty and a strip of light under the kitchen door. She finds Tom at the table, a legal pad covered in his cramped handwriting, a folder of photocopied records spread out like a map of something neither of them wants to see. Tom. Her voice is soft, but there's an edge underneath it, the edge of a woman who has watched her husband disappear a little more each night for 3 weeks. Come to bed. I can't stop looking at this, Em. He doesn't look up. 11 names now, 11. All within a 20-mile radius, all in the last 14 months. And what happens, she says, sitting down across from him, when the 11th name is yours? The question lands the way she means it, too hard, direct, a wife's fear dressed up as a challenge. I have to know, Tom says. I keep thinking about Rosa standing outside that morgue. I keep thinking, what if that's you someday, standing outside asking some clerk if there's an unclaimed body that might be Jake. Don't. Emily's voice breaks on the single syllable. Don't you dare put that image in my head and then ask me to be okay with you chasing it. They sit in silence for a long moment, the refrigerator humming, the clock over the stove ticking past 2:15. I'm scared, Emily finally says, and it isn't an argument anymore, just the truth, laid bare on the table between the coffee cups. I'm scared of what you're finding. I'm scared of what happens if the wrong person finds out you're finding it. Tom reaches across the table and takes her hand. I'm scared too, he says, but I don't think I get to unknow this now. The first warning comes wrapped in politeness, the way threats do in small towns where everyone still has to see each other at the grocery store. Lieutenant Derek Duke Harlan, Sheriff Coulter's right hand, a man built like a linebacker with a smile that never reaches his eyes, stops by First National on a Tuesday afternoon, ostensibly to open a new account. Heard you've been spending a lot of time down at records, Tom, Duke says, signing a form without looking at it. Man in your position, respected in this town, you'd hate for people to get the wrong idea. Start thinking you've got some kind of agenda against the men and women who keep this town safe. I don't have an agenda, Duke. I've got a friend who never came home. Duke's smile doesn't move. Lot of bad element coming up that river these days, Tom. Sheriff Coulter's just trying to keep Millbrook safe for people like your Lily. Heard she plays shortstop now. Good arm on that girl. The mention of his daughter's name in that mouth in that tone lands like a physical blow. Tom says nothing. He doesn't have to. Duke has already made his point and left. That night, a car sits across from the Whitaker house for 45 minutes, engine idling, headlights off. Nobody gets out. Nobody needs to. By December, the corkboard in Tom's home office, a repurposed guest room Emily used to use for scrapbooking, holds 17 names. 17 photographs, most pulled from yearbooks and Facebook profiles and church directories, connected by red string to court dates, arrest records, cremation logs. Some nights he sits alone at his desk long after Emily and the kids are asleep, reading the names out loud like a roll call nobody else is taking. Marcus Rivera, he says to the empty room. Daniel Ostrowski, Kevin Boyd, Terrence Wallace. His voice catches on the fifth name, a 19-year-old named Andre Michaels, whose mother works the register at the Rite Aid on 5th, who still asks Tom, every time he comes in for allergy medicine, if he's heard anything. He puts his head in his hands, and for the first time since this began, lets himself cry, not the composed tears of a funeral, but the ragged, silent kind that comes when a man realizes he is carrying something too large for one pair of shoulders. In January, after a second car spends the night parked outside the house, Tom does something he doesn't tell Emily about until much later. He sets up the family camcorder in the den, the same one they used for Lily's dance recitals, and records a message. Hey guys, he says, and his voice wobbles on the second word. This is for you, Jake, and you, Lilybug. If you're watching this, it probably means something happened to me, and I need you both to know some things. He pauses. Wipes his eyes with the back of his hand. I need you to know I wasn't out looking for trouble. I found something wrong and I couldn't make myself unfind it. Your mom is going to tell you I was stubborn and she's right. But I want you to know I did this because I love this town and I love the people in it, and I love you too more than anything on God's green earth. More than anything. He looks directly into the lens the way you'd look into a person's eyes. Jake, you've got a good, careful mind. Use it to ask questions people don't want asked. That's not a burden, that's a gift. Lily, you've got a fire in you that scares me sometimes in the best way. Don't ever let anybody talk you out of it. He stops the recording, then starts it again a moment later, unable to leave it there. And tell your mother, tell her I'm sorry for all the 2 a.m. arguments. Tell her she was right to be scared. Tell her I loved her every single day I got to be her husband. By February, Tom has 22 names, sworn statements from 4 grieving families, and copies smuggled out slowly over months by Frank Delaney of internal transfer logs that don't match the official arrest records at all. He takes it to the Millbrook Gazette first. The young reporter, Sarah Kwan, is skeptical until she sees the paper trail herself, and then she isn't skeptical anymore, she's frightened and determined in roughly equal measure. The story runs on a Sunday. By Wednesday, 300 people pack into the community hall at St. Anne's for a meeting nobody official called but everybody somehow heard about. Tom stands at the podium, his hands visibly shaking, Emily in the second row gripping Jake's hand so hard her knuckles have gone white. I'm not a lawyer, Tom says. I'm not an activist. Most of you know me as the guy at the bank who helped you refinance your house, or the guy who couldn't get your kid to lay off first base. I never wanted to be up here. He looks out at Rosa Rivera, sitting in the front row, and at 6 other mothers beside her. But 22 families in this county are missing someone they love, and the story we've been told about what happened to them doesn't hold up. I have the paperwork. I have the dates, I have the names. And I think this town, this whole country, maybe needs to decide what kind of place we want to be, especially when we're scared. Because scared people let scared things happen. I was scared too. I'm still scared. But I couldn't live with myself if I said nothing. The room is dead silent, and then it erupts, not into cheers exactly, but into something rower. Gasps, sobs, a low, furious murmur that has been building in this county for 14 months and has finally found a place to go. 2 weeks after the meeting, Tom doesn't come home from work. Emily calls the bank at 6. His assistant manager says he left at 5, same as always. She calls his cell straight to voicemail. By 7, she's driving to First National herself, and she finds his car in the parking lot, engine off, keys still in the ignition, his briefcase on the passenger seat untouched. There is no blood. No sign of struggle that a person could point to in a photograph. Just a car in a parking lot and a husband who is nowhere. Emily calls the sheriff's department. Duke Harlan himself takes the report, his voice smooth and sympathetic in a way that makes her skin crawl. We'll look into it, ma'am. Man, under that kind of stress, sometimes they just need to get away for a bit. He would never leave his children, Emily says, and for the first time in months, her fear curdles into something with a harder edge. You know that, you know that. For 3 days, Emily doesn't sleep. She sits at Tom's desk in Tom's chair in front of Tom's corkboard and does the only thing she knows how to do. She keeps going. She calls Sarah Kwan at the Gazette. She calls Rosa Rivera and the other mothers, and together, a schoolteacher and a group of grieving parents, they call every reporter within 200 miles who will pick up the phone. She calls the FBI field office in Cincinnati, and when the local task force stonewalls her, she calls a congressman's office, then a second one, then a civil rights organization out of Columbus. I used to beg him to stop, she tells Rosa one night, both women sitting on the Whitaker's back porch, the December cold long since given way to a raw, wet March. I used to lay awake terrified he'd get us all killed. Now I think if I stop, if I let this go quiet, everything he did means nothing. I owe him this, I owe Mark this, I owe every one of those 22 names this. Jake, 16 and silent for weeks, starts helping too, teaching himself to edit video, splicing together his father's old recordings, the community hall speech, Frank Delaney's careful testimony given anonymously, his face blurred, his voice disguised into something Sarah Kwan's paper can put online. Lily draws a picture of her father in his coaching cap that Emily frames and sets on the mantle, not as a memorial. She refuses that word, but as a promise. The pressure works slowly, the way pressure does in places that would rather it didn't. FBI Special Agent Elena Vargas arrives in Millbrook in April. Assigned to a civil rights inquiry after Sarah Kwan's reporting, Emily's relentless calls, and a viral video edited by a 16-year-old boy combine into something Washington can no longer pretend not to notice. Vargas is careful, thorough, unmoved by Sheriff Coulter's charm in a way the county has not seen from an outsider in a long time. She interviews Frank Delaney formally, on the record, his hands shaking as he finally says out loud what he's carried for years. She subpoenas River Valley Cremation Services records. She finds a storage unit outside Wheeling, West Virginia, rented under a false name, containing boxes of personal effects, wallets, photographs, a Marine Corps dog tag belonging to men listed as unclaimed. She finds Tom's watch there, not his body. His watch and his wedding ring. Emily identifies them in a sterile federal building an hour from home, and this time when she cries, it isn't only from grief. It's the strange, terrible relief of finally being believed. Sheriff Raymond Coulter is indicted 8 months later on federal civil rights charges connected to 4 of the 22 disappearances, the 4 for which Vargas's team can build an airtight case. He is convicted on 2 counts and sentenced to 18 years. Duke Harlan takes a plea deal in exchange for testimony, and it is his testimony cold and clinical. That finally confirms in an official record what everyone in Millbrook has known in their bones for over a year. Tom Whitaker was taken to the same unmarked basement room Frank Delaney once described on his porch and never came out. His remains are never found. 11 of the 22 families get partial answers. 6 get none at all. Rosa Rivera's son Mark is among the 6. A year after the trial, the town of Millbrook dedicates a small memorial garden on the riverbank, not far from where the old steel mill used to stand. 22 stones, each with a name, each with a small brass plate. Mark Rivera's stone sits third from the left. Tom Whitaker's sits at the end of the row, closest to the water. Emily comes here most Sundays after church, sometimes with Jake, now away at college studying journalism, sometimes with Lily, 17 now, wearing her father's old Marine Corps dog tags, recovered from that storage unit near Wheeling and returned to the family on a chain around her neck. She doesn't come to grieve, not exactly, or not only that. She comes to remember what it cost and what it was worth and to make sure the town keeps remembering too. He paid for that with everything he had. But in a small town along the Ohio River on quiet Sunday afternoons, 22 stones catch the last of the evening light. And for as long as somebody remembers to read the names out loud, the river never quite takes them. This has been a work of fiction. But somewhere in some small town in some year, it was somebody's truth.